One rainy afternoon in Seattle, a 69-year-old woman found her granddaughter's blanket thrown away in the trash. But when she touched it, she felt something hard hidden inside, and in that moment, her entire world collapsed. A blanket, a secret, and a mother's quiet journey to seek justice. A haunting story of guilt, love, and forgiveness. One that will hold you spellbound until the very last line. Before we begin this story, let me know where you are listening from in the comments below. People often say that silence is golden, that it brings peace, that it helps us find ourselves again. But they've never lived in a house where every brick, every window pane is soaked with the sighs of the past. My name is Helen Crawford, 69 years old, living in a quiet suburb north of Seattle, where autumn lasts longer than my loneliness. Every morning, I sit by the kitchen window, a cup of coffee cooling in my hands, watching the first sunlight spill through the maple trees outside. That light used to soothe me. Now it only reveals the emptiness on the dining table. Across from me, the empty chair is still there. Mark's chair, my only son's. He died 3 years ago, in what the police called an accident with no signs of foul play. The irony is, since that day, nothing around me has been normal. Mark and Ashley's wedding photo still sits on the shelf, its glass frame clouded with dust. Ashley seldom visits, only occasionally, with little Isabel, my 3-year-old granddaughter, whom I love so much, I'd trade the rest of my life just to hear her laugh once more. Our meetings are always brief, polite, like two strangers pretending to act close. No more hugs, no more sharing glances, only dry, perfunctory words, brittle as receipts. Isabel's been eating well, Mom? Yes. She's growing so fast. After they leave, the house returns to its own quiet heartbeat. I still hear Mark's footsteps in the hallway, and for a moment, I almost believe that if I turned my head, he would be there, smiling, saying, "Mom, your coffee's getting cold." But the chair stays empty, and the coffee still grows cold. That morning, I left the house earlier than usual. The air was crisp, mist curled over familiar Maple Street. I drove slowly, listening to the morning radio, weather reports, traffic jams, the usual dull chatter, until a strange color caught my eye. A mint green patch, pale, soft, standing out among the garbage piled before the last house on the street. My heart faltered. I slowed, then stopped completely. I didn't know why, but my hands trembled around the steering wheel. The feeling was uncanny, as if the past had just whispered my name. I stepped out. The wind carried the damp smell of trash, wet grass, and rusted metal. Amid the plastic bags and cardboard boxes lay a blanket, grimy with dust yet still retaining that gentle mint hue. Mark's blanket. I couldn't be mistaken. I recognized the uneven stitch in the left corner. My own clumsy mark from 10 years ago, when I knitted it by hand as a gift for my son. That was the day Mark told me Ashley was pregnant. I remember it clearly. I spent nearly a month making that blanket, every loop woven with the joy and love of a mother soon to hold her grandchild. Now, it was lying in the trash, like a wound someone had thrown away. My breath caught. I bent down and carefully lifted the blanket. Dirt and paper crumbs clung to the yarn, yet somewhere within it lingered the scent of lavender, Ashley's favorite detergent, a smell that once comforted me, now twisted my heart in pain. Then I realized there was something hard inside, a small, rectangular shape nestled within the soft folds. I held my breath. My hand curled back, afraid to touch what my heart wasn't ready to know. The street was empty, only the wind sighing through the trees. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles whitened, my mind echoing with 1,000 questions. Why had Ashley thrown it away? Why hide something inside? And why did I find it today? Of all days, the 3rd anniversary of Mark's death. I wrapped the blanket gently and laid it on the passenger seat, as though cradling a child. The feeling was both sacred and terrifying. On the drive home, memories poured in like a flood. I remembered Mark at 10, his bright brown eyes as he shouted, "Mom, watch this!" while running across the yard. I remembered the night before his wedding, when he hugged me and said, "Mom, I want Ashley to feel loved the way you've always loved me." I remembered his face during the ceremony, confident, happy, full of trust. I once believed nothing could break that trust, and yet now there was only me, a blanket, and a growing dread swelling inside my chest. By the time I reached home, clouds had smothered the sky. I set the blanket on the sofa and turned on the living room lamp. The yellow light spread across the room, making it look both warm and foreign. I sat down and stared at it for a long time. Strangely, the blanket's presence made the house feel alive again, as if Mark had returned. But at the same time, a chill ran down my spine. Something inside me whispered that what lay hidden there should never be found. I brewed a pot of tea but didn't drink it. I lifted the cup, inhaled the faint scent of mint, then set it down again. Everything, the wall clock, the curtains, the glint of light on the glass, was silent, except for the sound of my own heartbeat. I looked at the blanket. What was inside? A keepsake from Mark? A letter? Or something far worse? Time moved thickly, like glue. When the clock struck 12, I was still sitting there. Wind rattled the window frame. I reached out, touched the lump inside the fabric, firm, cold. Tears almost came, not from fear, but from old pain waking again. I remembered Mark draping that same blanket over my shoulders when I was sick. "Mom, it's cold. Cover yourself." And now here I was, doing the opposite, trying to find my son through something he once touched. I was about to cut the seam. I had the scissors in hand, my fingers trembling violently. But then, something stopped me. Maybe it was the fear that once the truth was revealed, I would lose the last piece of my son that remained. I put the scissors down and leaned back. The lamplight spilled across the table, reflecting off my wrinkled hands. I spoke, softly, my voice hoarse. "Mark, what do you want me to do? Should I destroy the last thing you and Ashley ever shared?" There was no answer, only the wind slipping through the cracks, sounding like a distant sigh. I left the blanket resting on the chair, as if it were asleep. And I, in my cold house, lay awake all night, listening to my heartbeat merge with the ticking clock, wondering, when the sun rises tomorrow, will I have the courage to face the truth lying inside that blanket? That night, I couldn't sleep. The only sound in the house was the rain, soft at first, then pattering against the roof like the quiet knocking of memory. The wind slipped through the window frame, cold against my neck, making me shiver. I had turned off every light except the small lamp in the living room. Its glow spilled over the mint green blanket, resting on the chair, as if waiting for me to speak. Strange. In all my life, I had never been afraid of a piece of fabric. But tonight, it frightened me. Not because it was an object, but because I knew it held something I didn't want to know. I sat still, listening to the ticking clock. Each second crept forward, reminding me that time would not stop to let me gather my courage. Part of me wanted to leave everything alone, to fold the blanket, take it to the backyard, and burn it. But another part, the part that had been a mother all my life, whispered, "Helen, if your son is trying to tell you something, you have to listen." I stood and walked to the cabinet, pouring more hot water. Steam rose from the chamomile tea, filling the damp air with a gentle fragrance. But when I took a sip, the bitterness spread across my tongue. It wasn't the taste of tea. It was the taste of years of regret. I looked at the blanket. Under the lamplight, it shimmered faintly green. One end was damp, the other dry. The yarn strands twisted tightly together like me and my grief. Bound, inseparable. I stepped closer. My fingertips trembled as they touched the fabric. Soft, but beneath it was something hard, foreign. Not the shape of a picture frame, nor a music box. I had felt it earlier that afternoon, but now, in the silence, its presence was sharper. It had the shape of a secret. I sat down. The wooden chair creaked, a brittle sound in the empty room. I pulled out an old sewing tin from the drawer. The tiny scissors were rusted, the curved needle still stuck in a piece of cotton. I remembered using them when I knitted this very blanket. That night, Mark and Ashley told me I was going to be a grandmother. I could still see Mark's eyes gleaming with pride. "Mom, I think I found the happiness of my life." And I believed him. Completely. So completely that I never prepared for the day that happiness would shatter. Now I stared at the blanket, the symbol of that trust, and had to cut it open with my own hands. I took a deep breath, held it. "Mark," I whispered, "if you can still hear me, forgive me. But I have to know." The scissors sliced through the yarn, a sound soft as a sigh, yet it made my heart ache. I cut slowly, each thread unraveled, loose strands falling like white hair onto the table. Inside the fabric, a small black object appeared. I froze. A phone. Old, scratched, but unmistakably intact. I didn't dare touch it. It felt like touching a piece of Mark's life left behind. I counted to 3, then powered it on. The screen flickered to life, weakly, like an eye opening after a long sleep. The wallpaper showed Isabel's face. Wide eyes, bright smile, a missing baby tooth. For a brief moment, my heart softened. But then I scrolled down and saw the photo library. I tapped it. Images appeared, dozens of them. I recognized Ashley, the blonde hair, the familiar smile. But the man standing beside her wasn't Mark. Another man, shoulder to shoulder. The way they looked at each other was intimate, so intimate it froze my heart. The caption beneath read, "Seattle General, 2019. A chill ran down my spine. 2019, the year Mark was still alive. I swiped through more photos, the same 2 faces, laughing in a cafe, Ashley's hand resting on the man's. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to shrink around me, the light dimming. I braced myself against the table, the world spinning. No, it couldn't be. Ashley, my daughter-in-law, the woman who had knelt by Mark's coffin and wept until she fainted. Her? I opened the messages folder. It was empty, except for one unsent draft. I tapped it. Just one line. "I can't take it anymore. Mark will never let me go." I read it again, my lips trembling. I didn't understand. Never let her go? What did that mean? Had Mark done something? Or was she talking about her own guilt? I didn't know. Only those 2 words, never and go, echoed in my mind like tolling bells. I set the phone down and held my head in my hands. Memories flooded in. Every detail, every fragment of the night Mark died. I remembered the police knocking on my door near midnight. Ashley's red eyes, her tangled hair, her hands, so clean, almost suspiciously clean. I remembered how she said, I don't know how he fell. Even then, I'd seen something hidden in her eyes, but I convinced myself it was shock, that I was imagining things. Now I wasn't sure anymore. I walked to the window and flung it open. The cold night air poured in, thick with the scent of rain. I tried to breathe, but the air felt heavy, viscous. I leaned against the frame, looking out at the drenched yard. Each drop of rain struck like a heartbeat. I don't know how long I stood there. When I turned back, the clock read 3 a.m. Isabel was still asleep on the sofa, her little face serene as an angel's. I sat beside her, gently brushing the golden hair from her forehead. The gesture was so familiar, it made my eyes sting. "My love," I whispered, "Grandma won't let anyone hurt you, no matter what." I went back to the table, placed the phone in a wooden box, wrapped it in clean cloth, and locked it. I needed time. I needed to think. But I knew, from the moment I opened that blanket, there was no turning back. I opened an old notebook, untouched for years, and wrote on the first line, "The blanket once symbolized love. Now it has become the box that holds the truth." I paused, then added in trembling letters, "No matter how painful it is, the truth must be seen. For Mark." Outside, the rain had stopped. The first light of dawn slipped through the curtains, landing on Mark and Ashley's old wedding photo. In it, Mark smiled brightly, while Ashley leaned her head on his shoulder. The morning light made them look alive again, a beautiful image, false enough to break my heart. I reached out, wiped the dust from the glass. "Mark," I murmured, "I promise I'll find the truth. Not for revenge, but so you can rest." And so, as the sun rose, I sat there, in the silent house, my hand resting on the wooden box. Inside me, fear and resolve wrestled violently. But one thing was certain. That morning, Helen Crawford began her search for the truth. The next morning, I woke with the weight of a stone pressing on my chest. Everything in the house was familiar, yet frighteningly strange. The early light filtered through the curtains and spilled across the blotched wall, the one that still held Mark's wedding photo. His smile in that picture looked both tender and distant. I sat up, my bare feet touching the icy wooden floor. The faint smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, but its bitterness seemed to sink deeper today. Each sip slid down my throat, heavy as an old memory. Last night, I had seen what no one should ever have to see. The photos, the messages, the evidence of betrayal. And I knew that from this moment on, I no longer had the right to live peacefully among lies. I opened the window. Cold air swept in, carrying the lingering scent of rain from the maple leaves. Everything outside was quiet, but inside my head was a storm. Every word from that message still echoed. I can't take it anymore. Mark will never let me go. I asked myself, who was the one tormented, Ashley or Mark? If she had feared him, why did she weep so convincingly after his death? And if Mark had discovered something, what exactly had he seen? I wandered through the house like a sleepwalker. Every object reminded me of the life we once had. The coat Mark had left draped over a chair, the chipped mug he used each morning. Small things, now turned into evidence of a world that had collapsed. As the light slanted through the window pane, I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. And then the memory of the night Mark died came rushing back. It had been raining hard. I still remember the thunder rolling in the distance. Around 10 that night, the phone rang. I answered. It was Ashley. Her voice was shaking. "Mrs. Helen, Mark fell." I heard sobs, then a faint scream. I ran out of the house without even grabbing a coat. By the time I arrived, the police were already there. The flashing red lights from the ambulance splashed against the walls. Mark lay at the bottom of the staircase, blood at his temple. I rushed forward, but they held me back. Ashley stood at the end of the hallway, her face pale, still clutching a spotless white tissue. I remember it clearly. In that flickering light, I saw her hands, perfectly clean. No blood, no scratches, no trembling. He just slipped, she said, her voice breaking. And I believed her, because I couldn't bear to lose anything more. But now, as I replayed every detail, it all fit together differently, like shards of glass forming a new image. Mark's death had not been an accident. I dropped into the chair, my head buzzing. The air felt thick, unbreathable. I inhaled sharply, nausea rising. Tears came on their own, warm, falling down my chin. "Oh, God," I whispered. My son's entire life was a lie. The words echoed through the hollow room. I looked around, half expecting to see Mark there. That gentle smile, those warm hands, those eyes always so grateful for life. I hadn't protected him. The late sunlight filtered through the curtains, glinting off the wooden box that held the phone. I opened the lid and touched it, cold. The chill made me shiver. Questions flooded my mind. Who was the man in the photos? Why had Ashley kept this phone, then hidden it inside the blanket? What was she trying to cover up? I knew I couldn't face the answers alone. I needed someone clear-headed, someone who could read between lines, someone who had looked into the face of deception before. And I thought of Gloria Harper. Gloria had been my friend since our church volunteer days. Before she retired, she'd worked as a coordinator at the Seattle Police Department. She was sharp, steady, but kind. After Mark's death, she was the only one who hugged me tightly and said, "You don't have to be strong. You just have to be honest with how you feel." I'd never forgotten that. I went back to the table, picked up the old receiver, and dialed her number. The phone rang. "Harper, speaking." "Gloria, it's me. Helen." A brief pause. "Helen Crawford. Good heavens. How many years has it been since you called me that way?" My voice trembled, hoarse. I think I found something. About Mark." She was silent for a few seconds, then said slowly, "Are you sure you want to dig this up again?" "I don't have a choice." "All right. I'll come by tomorrow. Make me a cup of mint tea, like old times." I set the phone down, my hands still shaking. Yet inside me stirred a strange, familiar feeling, like stepping out of darkness, where even blinding light makes your heart race. That evening, I tidied the living room. I folded the blanket carefully and placed it in the box with the phone. Every time my fingers brushed the yarn, pain pulsed through me, like touching the skin of the past. I wiped the table, changed the teacups, opened the windows to let the air flow through. Outside, Seattle was aglow. The streetlights shimmered on the wet pavement, spreading like ribbons of gold. I sat by the window, listening to the distant hum of cars, my heart hollow. If Mark were still here, he'd sit beside me and say, "Mom, I'm tired. But at least I'm trying. Now it's only me, trying in his place, to find out what really happened in that house. When the clock struck 10, I made a cup of chamomile tea and placed it beside Mark's photo. The scent drifted softly through the room, blending with the smell of wool and aged wood. "Mark," I whispered, "I'll find the truth. Not to accuse anyone, but so you can rest." A breeze swept through, rustling the curtain. For a fleeting moment, I thought I heard Mark's voice. "Mom." Faint, distant, like a memory calling from the other side. I closed my eyes, breathed deeply. The tears fell, but my heart felt calmer. I knew that when Gloria arrived, everything would begin to change. The truth would demand its price. And I, a 69-year-old woman, would have to be ready to pay it. I stood and turned off the light. The moonlight slanted through the window, shining on the wooden box atop the table. In that pale silver glow, it shimmered like a soul waiting to be freed. And I understood then. Mark's death was never an accident. It was an untold story. And I, his mother, would be the one to tell it. That afternoon, the fog in Seattle descended thick as a funeral shroud. Gray light crawled through the rain-streaked windows, spilling faint, cold trails across the dining table and the walls. I had been up since dawn, tidying the living room, setting 2 cups of mint tea on the table. The scent drifted softly through the air, faint, mingled with damp wood, a quiet reminder of a friendship long untouched. It had been 3 years since I last saw Gloria Harper, long enough for an old woman like me to believe that every thread connecting her to the world had long since frayed. Yet when I heard the knock, 3 times, a pause, then 2 more, I knew I still had someone left to lean on. I opened the door. Gloria stood there, wrapped in a heavy coat, hood pulled low, her face half hidden in the chill. Her silver and brown hair was tousled by the wind. She looked at me, her gray-blue eyes deep as the winter sea. "Good Lord, Helen," she murmured. "You've lost so much weight." I gave a faint smile. "Well, grief's an appetite all its own. It eats half your meals." Gloria shook her head, stepped inside, shrugged off her coat, and sat across from me. I poured the tea. Steam rose and touched her face, a face once marked by the firm lines of a policewoman, now softened by warmth. "This house hasn't changed," she said. "Still spotless, still smells of lavender, but far too quiet." "Yes," I replied. "Since Mark left, it's like the place forgot how to breathe." We sat in silence for a while. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking the rhythm of the past. My fingers trembled around the cup. The words I needed to say felt heavy in my throat. Gloria didn't rush me. She waited, knowing that what I was about to speak wasn't small. Finally, I exhaled. "Gloria, I don't think Mark died by accident." The air seemed to drain of sound. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in shock, but in quiet recognition. "I knew one day you'd say that," she said evenly. "I just didn't think it would take this long." I stood, opened the cabinet, and took out the old wooden box. Inside was the phone I had found in the blanket. I set it before her, as if placing a beating heart on the table. "This is what I found," I said softly. Inside the blanket I knitted for Mark. Gloria lifted the lid. When the light hit the scratched black surface of the phone, she drew in a sharp breath. "Someone tried to hide it," she whispered. I told her everything. How I'd seen the blanket in the trash, the moment I cut the stitches, the discovery of the phone, the unsent message. My voice shook as I spoke, as though my own words might make the truth materialize in front of us. When I finished, Gloria said nothing for a long time. Then she reached over and held my hand. "You did the right thing," she said. "I understand why you're afraid. But sometimes, to protect the people we love, we have to walk straight through that fear." I pressed my lips together, looking down at my cup. I trusted Ashley. I believed she loved Mark. Now, I don't know what to believe anymore. Gloria let go, turned on the phone. The dim screen lit up, showing the photos I already knew too well. Ashley, smiling brightly beside a man I didn't recognize. "This man," Gloria said, narrowing her eyes. "I've seen him before." "Yes, Hugh Miller, a civil engineer. He worked on the city hospital project. I remember the insurance scandal he was caught in a few years back." I stiffened. Ashley used to work at that hospital. "Then, if I'm right," Gloria nodded slowly, "they knew each other while Mark was still alive." The air grew dense again. The room felt smaller, colder. "Gloria," I stammered, "do you think they might have—" She stopped me. "Helen, don't jump to conclusions. We don't have proof. But one thing is clear. If she hid this phone, she had something she didn't want anyone to find." I nodded. "I don't want revenge. I just want the truth. Mark deserves that." Gloria lifted her cup, took a sip. "Your mint tea is still as strong as ever," she said with a tired smile. "I never learned how to make it lighter," I replied. "Just like I never learned how to love in moderation." Her smile deepened, weary but genuine. For a while, neither of us spoke. Outside, the wind brushed against the porch, making the window frame tremble faintly. Then Gloria set her cup down, her tone firm. "I'll help you, Helen. Not out of curiosity, not for work, but for friendship and for Mark. But promise me one thing. Don't act impulsively. Don't confront Ashley. Don't reveal anything. We need evidence." I met her gaze, steady. "I promise." Gloria stood and paced the room, her eyes scanning the walls, the framed photos, the neatly folded blanket. "I'll need to copy the phone's data. There might be deleted files. I know someone in the department's tech unit. He'll know how to recover it." I nodded. "Whatever it takes to find out what really happened." She turned back, laid a hand on my shoulder, gave it a firm squeeze. "Don't forget why you started this, Helen. Not out of anger, but for justice. Justice for Mark and for Isabel." At the mention of my granddaughter, my heart softened. I smiled faintly. She still calls Ashley her angel mommy. If she ever learned the truth, I can't bear to imagine. "We'll protect her," Gloria said firmly. "Until we know the full story, Isabel stays innocent. She mustn't lose anything more." Between us, silence lingered. But it was a warm kind of silence. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel alone in my grief. Before leaving, Gloria pulled on her coat and turned back. "I'll call you tonight. Pretend I was never here. No one must know if Ashley asks. Say you found the blanket. Nothing more." I nodded. "Thank you, Gloria. You're the only one I can trust." She smiled. "I don't know if we can change the past, Helen, but I believe you're brave enough to face it." When the door closed, the house fell quiet again. But this silence was different. It no longer felt suffocating. The scent of mint lingered in the air, carrying a trace of hope. I cleared the table, leaving the 2 cups still warm, then looked at the empty seat where Gloria had sat. I could almost see her smile there, steady and kind. Her words echoed in my mind. "We can't let Isabel grow up inside a lie." I whispered to the quiet room. "You're right, Gloria. No one will live in the dark anymore. No matter the cost, I'll keep going. I looked toward the mint green blanket on the sofa. The last light of day fell across it, the threads glimmering as if alive. I rested my hand on it, gently stroking. My dear boy, I said, your mother has found a shoulder to lean on. This time, I won't fall. This morning, the Seattle sky was strangely gray. A drizzly rain fell slowly, as if the sky were weighing whether it should truly cry. I stood by the window, a cup of cold coffee in my hand, watching droplets fall onto the eaves. The dim, quiet light reflected my face in the glass, wrinkled, tired, but in those eyes was a kind of light I hadn't seen in 3 years. Resolve. Gloria called at exactly 7 o'clock. Are you ready, Helen? Yes. I've thought it through all night. Let's do it. Her voice was even and firm. Today is just a visit. You talk as usual. I'll observe. If we're lucky, we'll get something. Don't let any suspicion show. I understand. I put on the gray wool dress Mark once praised and fastened my mother's old brooch. I looked in the mirror and told myself, Helen, stay clear-headed. Today, pain must make room for reason. Gloria picked me up in her old silver sedan. A faint scent of mint lingered in the car. The smell I always associate with Gloria, gentle but unmistakable. On the way, she spoke slowly. Where does she live? South of the city, the neighborhood where Mark once fixed up the lawn for Isabel to play. Gloria nodded, eyes never leaving the road ahead. Once we're inside, let me handle it. I'll excuse myself to use the bathroom and take the chance to photograph anything suspicious. You keep her busy. I chuckled softly. I can do that. I once taught Isabel to pretend to eat vegetables, even though she hated them with a passion. Gloria laughed, then fell silent. We both sank into quiet for the rest of the drive. Ashley's house nestled at the end of a street lined with golden maples, new roof tiles, clean white walls, everything neat to the point of soullessness. When the car stopped, my palms were slick with sweat. Ashley opened the door before I could knock. Mom, what a surprise! You came without telling me. Her voice was clear, sweet enough to make my skin crawl. Grandma has to visit her granddaughter. I smiled. And this is an old friend of mine, Gloria Harper. Ashley nodded, her smile a little stiff. Yes, I remember you. You came to Mark's funeral. We stepped inside. The space was filled with the scent of vanilla and synthetic lavender. The living room gleamed, not a single extra item in sight. On the table sat a framed photo of Isabel and Ashley, artfully placed between pristine white flowers. There wasn't a single photo of Mark. I felt my throat tighten, but forced it down. Tea or coffee, Mom? Tea, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. While Ashley went to make tea, Isabel ran out from the next room, hugging her old teddy bear. Grandma! She squealed, voice bright and clear. I bent down, opening my arms. She flung herself into me. Her hair smelled like sunshine, her soft cheek pressed to my neck. I missed you so much, Isabel, I whispered. I missed you too. Mommy won't let me go to your house anymore. She says it's too far. I froze, but managed a smile. Yes, she's afraid I'll get tired. Ashley returned with a tea tray and set it on the table. She talks a lot, Mom. Don't believe everything she says. I smiled, looking straight into her eyes. Children rarely lie. A brief silence, then Ashley changed the subject. I just changed jobs, Mom. The old hospital closed the research fund, so I moved to a friend's company to do admin. I asked lightly, as if genuinely curious. Which company? Miller Construction. Thunder rolled through my head. I glanced at Gloria. She sat calmly, but I saw her hand tighten into a fist. I swallowed. Miller Construction? The company that worked on the city hospital? Ashley hesitated for a moment, then smiled. I think so, Mom. But I'm only there temporarily. It doesn't have anything to do with me. Gloria tilted slightly and gave a polite smile. Excuse me. May I use your bathroom? Ashley pointed. End of the hall, on the left. When she left the room, I could hear my own heart pounding. Ashley started talking about Isabel, her new school program, the toys she'd bought her. I listened without truly listening. In my head, I was counting time, each minute, each second. The room seemed to shrink. I heard the wind whistling through the window frame, the thick scent of candles. Everything was clean to the point of artificial. Even Ashley's smile looked like a decorative item. Pretty, but not real. I forced myself to smile, to nod, to feign interest. Every word I spoke felt like it drained the air from my lungs. 10 minutes passed, then 15. When Gloria returned, her face was as composed as if she'd never left her chair. She asked for a bit more sugar, took a sip of tea, and chatted for a few more minutes about Isabel. No one suspected a thing. At the door, Ashley hugged me, squeezing a shade tighter than necessary. I'm glad you still come by. Even though we don't talk much, you're still my family. I smiled and answered softly, yes, family. To me, it sounded like a farewell. We left in silence. As the car turned off the street, I looked back. Ashley still stood in the doorway, waving, her smile fixed on her face. Gloria drove straight to the parking area near Green Lake. The rain began to fall harder. She took out her phone and quickly scrolled through a few photos. Helen, she said in a low voice, you need to see this. I looked. The screen showed a corner of the table in Ashley's living room. On it lay a life insurance contract and a bank transfer receipt. The amount listed, $200,000. Beneficiary, Ashley Crawford. Approved by Hugh Miller. I went numb. Gloria had taken a few more shots, including the part of the contract with the signing date. 3 weeks before Mark died. I heard the rain pounding on the roof of the car, merging with the racing beat of my heart. My God, I whispered. She really did it? She and that man? Gloria squeezed my shoulder. Don't conclude yet, but every sign points in one direction. Now we need hard proof. Transaction copies, transfer schedules, anything that proves their connection. I looked out the window. The city was blurred behind the rain. Gloria, I hate pretending. Every word I say to her feels like betraying Mark all over again. She took my hand. Helen, you're not betraying anyone. You're protecting your son's memory, and you're protecting Isabel. I looked at her, my eyes burning. I'm not afraid of the truth. I'm only afraid if it's true. And that's exactly why, Gloria said. You have to keep going. We sat still, listening to the rain cascade down, each drop striking the glass like the dry, insistent knocking of justice at the door. I glanced at the mint green blanket folded on the back seat. Condensation from the window fogged over, laying a thin veil of mist across the fabric. Softly, as if speaking to Mark, I said, My child, I had to look straight into the face of the one who might have hurt you. But I promise, I'll see this through. Gloria started the engine. The sound rose, tearing through the silence. Let's go, Helen. Today was only the beginning. And so, in a rain-blurred Seattle afternoon, 2 old women drove off in an old car toward a journey no one knew where would lead. Only this, at the end of that road, the truth was waiting. That night, Seattle drowned in rain, a quiet kind of sorrow that seemed to have no end. I sat in the living room, the dim yellow light falling over the mint green blanket resting motionless on the chair. Raindrops trailed down the window pane, reflecting a pale light that made the whole room look veiled in mist. In front of me, the old phone still displayed the photo Gloria had sent. A life insurance contract, Hugh Miller's signature, and a sum large enough to kill for. I thought I'd grown used to pain, but that night, I felt something else. Fear. Not just fear of what Ashley might have done, but fear of what I was about to uncover. The phone buzzed. Gloria's message lit up the screen. Helen, I found something else. There's a strange file connected to Isabel. Don't panic. I'll bring it over in the morning. I didn't close my eyes for the rest of the night. Every time I tried, I saw Mark's face. His smile as he lifted Isabel on her first birthday, spinning her around while Ashley stood nearby, eyes distant. I remembered that smile so clearly, the happiest I'd ever seen. But now I wondered, had he already sensed something was wrong, even then? The next morning, the knock at the door startled me. I hadn't even brewed the tea yet when Gloria appeared on the porch, damp from the morning fog. It's barely raining. What got you up so early? I asked, ushering her in. Who could sleep after last night's thoughts? She said with a faint smile, setting a folder on the table. I poured tea, my hands trembling slightly. Gloria pulled from her bag a stack of worn papers, clipped with rusted metal, the edges yellowed with age. Here, she said. You need to see this. I unfolded it. The first page was a copy of a birth certificate. I looked down at the line for mother. Lydia Torres. I frowned. Lydia? Who is that? Why not Ashley? Gloria's voice was calm but heavy. I checked with records. This is the original birth certificate for Isabel, issued at City Hospital in 2019. The mother's name is Lydia Torres, the father, left blank. The room went deathly still. My skin turned cold, my vision blurred. No, that can't be. Isabel is Ashley's daughter. The child always called her mother. And Mark, my voice caught. My son, he loved that child as his own. Gloria placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Helen, it's possible Ashley adopted Isabel, but the record shows no legal adoption filed. And the strange thing is, Lydia Torres, the biological mother, disappeared right after being discharged. I stared at the paper until the letters swam through my tears. Oh, God, I whispered. So, Isabel? She isn't Mark's blood? Gloria nodded slowly. That's right. But that doesn't change anything. She's still your granddaughter. At least in your heart. I bowed my head, tears dripping onto the paper's edge. I wasn't crying, because Isabel wasn't family by blood. I cried because of Mark. He'd spent his short life inside a beautiful illusion, believing he had the perfect family. I remembered the look on his face when he first saw Isabel, the way he laughed. Mom, she has Ashley's eyes. Now I knew. Those eyes weren't Ashley's at all. Gloria opened another folder. There's more. It was a copy of Mark's life insurance policy. Beneficiary, Ashley Crawford. Date signed, 3 weeks before his death. Mark's signature wavered, smudged, like a man's hand forced. I closed my eyes and drew a long breath. Gloria, I don't doubt anymore. She didn't just betray Mark, she profited from his death. Gloria said nothing. She looked at me with both pity and worry. Helen, before we conclude, there's still one question. Not just what Ashley did, but what happened to Lydia. I think the two are connected. We spent hours hunched over Gloria's laptop, searching old archives, chasing fragments of names and news. The wind hissed through the window, mixing with the dry click of the mouse. Then Gloria froze. I knew she'd found something. On the screen appeared an old newspaper clipping, headline trembling like a curse. Single mother disappears with 2-month-old son, suspected abduction. The mother's name, Lydia Torres. The photo showed a young woman with dark hair and gentle eyes, holding a baby wrapped in a mint green blanket. I went numb. My hands fell slack, the teacup slipped and shattered on the floor. Gloria, I whispered, my voice shaking. The blanket. It was hers, not mine. She stared at me, stunned. What do you mean? Lydia Torres. She was the first to own it. I thought I knitted it for Mark. But all this time, it belonged to another mother first. We sat in silence. Outside, the rain began again. I reached out, touched the yarn, and realized that all along, I'd been cradling a witness to the truth without knowing it. I didn't cry. The tears had long since run dry. What I felt now was something quieter. Acceptance. I spoke softly, my voice trembling but steady. Gloria, Isabel doesn't need the Crawford name for me to love her. She's an innocent child caught in the lies adults built. My love doesn't need a birth certificate. Gloria smiled, a gentle, tired smile. That's what makes you different, Helen. And maybe that's what will save Isabel. I lifted my eyes to Mark's photo on the wall. The dim light touched his face, kind, peaceful, smiling. My dear boy, I whispered. I promise I'll take care of Isabel. No matter whose child she is, I'll love her as you did. I folded the birth certificate carefully and placed it inside the box with the blanket. My hands trembled, but they were no longer weak. What will you do next? Gloria asked. We find Lydia Torres. She deserves to know her child is alive. Whether she's gone or still out there, the truth must be told. Gloria nodded. I'll check the police archives. If Lydia was reported missing, there'll be a file. Then she looked at me with quiet conviction. Helen, you're stronger than I ever imagined. I gave a sad smile. All mothers are strong when their children need protection, Gloria. Mine just doesn't need me anymore. But Isabel does. Outside, the rain eased. The last light of day slipped into the room, glinting off the mint green yarn. The threads shimmered softly, alive with color, like a new breath. My heart settled. The pain quieted, cooling like ashes after flame. I bowed my head and murmured, unsure to whom, to Mark, to Lydia, or to myself. Sometimes, God doesn't take everything away. He simply entrusts love to someone else to keep. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt my heart grow light, not because I knew the whole truth, but because I was finally strong enough to face it. I once thought there was nothing left in this world that could make my heart hurt more. But that morning, I was wrong. Seattle sank again into a thick gray fog. The dim light fell like a mourning shroud over the city. I sat by the window with a cup of cold coffee in my hand, watching people pass by. Inside me, a restlessness paced like a caged animal. Gloria had promised to come back with something important, and I had a feeling it would change everything. The doorbell rang at 8. I went to open it. Gloria stood there, her coat soaked with mist, weariness faint on her face. It's so cold, I said, taking the file bag from her hands. Not as cold as what's in here, Helen, she replied quietly. We sat at the dining table. Gloria opened the bag and took out a thick stack of documents, freshly printed pages still smelling of ink. I found more on Lydia Torres. But before you look, you need to take a deep breath. I looked at her, trying to stay calm. Gloria, I survived watching Mark's coffin lowered into the ground. Nothing is going to make me collapse again. She opened her laptop. The screen glowed blue, and an old article appeared with a large headline: Single mother missing with 2-month-old son, suspected abduction in 2019. Beneath the headline was a photo. Lydia Torres, a young woman with a gentle face, dark hair falling to her shoulders, holding a baby wrapped in a mint green blanket. I went still. My heart skipped a beat. The whole room felt so quiet, I could hear the rain begin to patter on the roof. Gloria read softly, each word heavy as stone. The body of Lydia Torres was found in the forest north of Seattle, 3 months after she went missing. Police determined the cause of death to be blunt force head trauma, suspected homicide. The baby, with her, was never found. I felt the blood drain from my face. My chest tightened. My heart stumbled. Head trauma, I whispered. Like Mark. Gloria nodded slightly, her eyes darkening. I think so too. 2 deaths, 2 people with no connection, yet the same way of dying, and both linked to Ashley. I shot to my feet and had to grip the back of the chair not to fall. Everything spun. My small, cozy room suddenly became a cramped prison. I can't believe this. Helen, Gloria cut in, firm and steady. We're very close to the truth. Lydia Torres isn't a random name. I believe she once worked with Ashley at the city hospital. They knew each other. And when Lydia was pregnant, she disappeared with her baby. 3 months later, they found her body, but not the child. I clenched my hands. And then Ashley appeared with a newborn, saying the baby was hers and Mark's. Gloria nodded. Exactly. I was silent for a long time. My head swam. The old years unspooled like a faded reel. I remembered the first time I saw Isabel in Ashley's arms. I blurted out that she was too tiny, too fragile, not at all, like Mark. But Ashley smiled and said she took after my side of the family. I believed her. I believed because there was no reason to doubt a woman who had just given birth. Now it all stood out, with cruel clarity. Isabel was not Mark's child, and Ashley, she had hidden, had constructed a perfect story to cover Lydia's death. I looked at Gloria, my voice shaking. So that means Isabel is the missing baby? She gave a slight nod. Yes. I brought a hand to my mouth, holding back a sob. Dear God, the child did nothing wrong. Gloria came closer, laid a hand on my shoulder. No one says she did, Helen. That's exactly why you have to be stronger than ever. The child is the bridge, the living witness between 2 deceived souls, Mark and Lydia. I wiped my tears and sat down. What do we do? First, we need to verify Lydia's file is authentic. I've requested the police department to reopen the missing person case. I know someone, Detective Jack Roberts. He was on Mark Crawford's case. If anyone can connect the two, it's him. That name startled me. I remembered Roberts' face. At Mark's funeral, when he bowed and offered condolences, saying, "Sometimes an accident is just an accident." No one believes that anymore. Gloria looked at me, eyes both hard and kind. Helen, I know you're tired, but if you give up now, everything will be buried again. I drew a deep breath. No, Gloria, I won't let that happen. That afternoon, we went to the Seattle Police Department. The fog still hung low, streetlights reflected in dull puddles. I gripped Gloria's hand as we went in, like a child holding her mother's. Detective Jack Roberts met us in a small room on the second floor. He looked the same, tall, serious, with deep, slightly weary eyes. He pulled out chairs for us, his tone gentle. "I remember you, Mrs. Helen. Back then, we found no sign of foul play in your son's case, but Gloria says you have new information." I nodded. "Not just information, Detective. Evidence." Gloria opened the laptop and laid it out piece by piece. The insurance contract, the transfer receipt, Isabel's birth certificate, the article on Lydia Torres, and the match in head injuries. The room was quiet, only the clacking of keys and the soft hum of the air conditioner. When she finished, Roberts leaned back and was silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "What you've brought is enough for me to doubt that Mark's death was an accident. I'll reopen the case. But be prepared. This won't be easy. Ashley may have prepared everything long ago." I looked at him, my voice rough with emotion. "I don't want revenge, Detective. I just want the truth known, so Mark and Lydia can rest." Roberts nodded slightly. "And so, that child can grow up without living inside a lie." By the time we left the station, the sky was dark. The city glittered like a sea of stars trapped behind glass. I sat in the car, silent, watching the rain trail down the window. Gloria said nothing, only handed me a small cloth. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I don't know, but for the first time, I feel I'm doing the right thing." When I got home, I turned on the living room light. The soft yellow glow fell over the mint blanket. I went to it, sat down, and touched the old yarn. It was soft, cool, but strangely, warmth rose in my chest. Now the blanket was no longer a symbol of death. It was living proof of the love of three mothers: me, Lydia, and Gloria. Women, old or already gone, still trying to hold on to a child so she wouldn't vanish into lies. I whispered, almost a prayer. "Lydia, rest now. I will protect Isabel for you. I promise." Outside, the wind rose, sweeping the rain into a silver curtain. It sounded through the window frame like someone whispering, "Thank you." I smiled, my heart lighter. Before bed, I texted Gloria, "Tomorrow, we continue. I'm ready." And before I turned off the light, I took one last look at the mint green blanket, now a bridge between two worlds. I knew that from this moment on, I was no longer the old woman living in the past. I am Helen Crawford, a mother, a grandmother, and the keeper of the flame for the souls who are gone. The next morning, I woke with a strange new feeling, not the heaviness that had shadowed me every dawn for the past 3 years, but a kind of sweet tension, as if my heart had finally remembered how to beat for the right reason. Outside, Seattle was still draped in gray. The rain came softly, hesitating against the window pane. I made tea and set 2 cups on the table out of habit, though Gloria hadn't arrived yet. Perhaps I still wasn't used to no longer being alone in my grief. A knock on the door. Gloria stepped in, her coat dripping, but her smile brighter than I'd seen in months. "I have news," she said. "Good or bad?" "The kind that can change everything." We sat down. She pulled an envelope from her bag, a printout of an email from Detective Roberts. "He's reopened the investigation. Both names, Ashley Crawford and Hugh Miller, have been flagged for suspicious financial activity. There was a transfer from Ashley's account to Hugh's company right after Mark's death." I gripped the teacup so tightly, the heat burned my skin. "How much?" "Almost $1 million. I drew a deep breath. The number cut through memory like a blade. The insurance papers, the false embraces, Ashley's smile cold as glass. What will Roberts do next? He needs time to verify, but Helen? Gloria's gaze hardened. Ashley knows. Roberts says she sold her house. She's preparing to leave the country. I froze. She's running? Looks like it. And she plans to take Isabel. My heart clenched. No, I won't let that happen. That child is all I have left of Mark. If she takes her away, my voice cracked. I'll lose everything again. Gloria gripped my shoulder. Stay calm. We have to do this right. Roberts has filed an emergency hold on her travel while the case is active. But if she senses it, she'll find another way. I paced the room, the walls suddenly closing in. Every tick of the clock sounded like a countdown. How long? A few days, maybe less. I said nothing. Inside me, fear twisted into something fiercer, resolve. That afternoon, Roberts came. He set a thick folder on my kitchen table. We have a problem, he said bluntly. Ashley has moved all her funds offshore. She's using a new passport under a fake name. And I just received word from the airport. She's booked a flight to Vancouver tomorrow morning. I went cold. And Isabel? The ticket includes her name. Ashley claims it's a short trip. But I've seen this pattern before. It's one way. I clenched my fists. You have to stop her, detective. Please. We're trying. I've issued an alert. But if she changes airports or routes, it'll be harder. I need you and Gloria to stay put. Don't confront her. If she suspects anything, she'll vanish. Gloria nodded. You can count on us. I said nothing, because the line between patience and desperation was already fading. When Roberts left, I sat still for a long time. Gloria rested her hand on my shoulder. Do you trust him? I do, I said quietly. I just don't trust time. She sighed. We can't act alone, Helen. I turned to her. Gloria, I've lived 3 years trapped in fear and regret. I can bear anything now, except watching her take that child away. If Isabel leaves, we'll never find the truth. Our eyes met in silence. Then Gloria nodded slowly, the kind of nod that means there's no turning back. That night, I sat alone in the living room beside the mint green blanket. Rain hammered the windows. Thunder murmured in the distance. I stroked the yarn, rough, warm, and whispered, My child, forgive me if I do something reckless, but I won't let her disappear the way you did. The phone rang. I jumped. It was Roberts. Mrs. Crawford, Ashley's left her house. She's on the way to the airport. Can you stop her? We're sending officers now, but promise me, don't leave your house. I repeat, do not go there. I nodded, but didn't answer. When he hung up, I stayed by the window, watching the storm blur the world outside. The wind howled through the maples, and for a moment, I thought I heard Mark's name carried in it. I grabbed my coat, my purse, my car keys. The phone rang again. Gloria. Helen, what are you doing? I can't sit here, Gloria. I just need to see her with my own eyes. If I don't, I'll never forgive myself. Silence. Then her steady voice. I'm coming with you. We reached the airport in sheets of rain. The loudspeakers echoed across the hall. Footsteps clattered. Luggage wheels rattled over the tiles. My heart raced as I searched the crowd, until I saw her. Ashley stood at the check-in counter, holding Isabel's hand. She wore a beige coat, hair tied up neatly, her face calm, unnaturally calm. Isabel clutched her teddy bear, yawning, unaware she was about to be taken from the only home she knew. I don't remember crossing the floor. One moment I was walking. The next, I was there. Ashley! I called. She turned. For a heartbeat, panic flashed in her eyes, then vanished. Mom? What are you doing here? I should be asking you that, I said, my voice strangely steady. Where are you taking her? Just a little trip, she said lightly. Isabel misses the ocean. To Vancouver? I asked. Or farther? Gloria stepped forward, her tone sharp. Ashley, you can't leave the country. The police issued a hold on your passport. You know that. Ashley's face went pale. The mask fell. She clutched Isabel's hand and tried to move. But two uniformed officers appeared behind her. Miss Crawford, one of them said. Please come with us. There's an active investigation order from the Seattle Police Department. Ashley turned toward me, eyes blazing, not with pride anymore, but fear. What did you do? She shouted. I stood firm, my voice hoarse but steady. Only what a mother should do. They led her away, the sound of her heels fading down the sterile corridor. Isabel cried out, calling Mommy in confusion. I knelt, opened my arms. She ran into them, small, trembling, her breath hot against my neck. I whispered, It's all right, my love. Grandma's here now. Everything will be okay. By the time we left the airport, the rain had stopped. The nightlights shimmered across puddles like melted silver. I sat in the car, Isabel asleep in the back seat, clutching her bear. Gloria looked at me, smiling faintly through exhaustion. We did it, Helen. The circle is closing. I looked out the window and murmured, No, Gloria, this isn't the end. This is where justice finally begins to speak. That morning, when I opened my eyes, the first light slipping through the curtains was no longer as gloomy as every other day. Seattle felt rinsed clean after the night's storm, air fresh, damp, and strangely quiet. I could hear sparrows mixed with distant traffic. For the first time in 3 years, this house was hearing the sound of life again. On the table, the mint green blanket still lay, as if it were part of my body. I had folded it last night, after Isabel fell asleep. There was something in the child's eyes that made me believe all my efforts, years of torment, suspicion, and pain, were finally about to mean something. A knock sounded. Gloria stepped in, a thick envelope in hand, her face serious. From Roberts, she said, setting the envelope gently on the table. We have answers. I didn't ask. I knew whatever was inside would change everything. She opened the envelope and took out a stack of papers and a small USB drive. Testimony and evidence. Ashley has confessed. The air in the room seemed to thicken. I could hear my heart beating slow enough to hurt. Read it to me, I said softly. Gloria read, her voice even and low. Ashley Crawford admits to having a relationship with Hugh Miller, director of the construction company that worked with the hospital where she was employed. She owed him money. When she learned that Lydia Torres, a young pregnant patient without family, was looking for a place to stay, Ashley offered to help her. After Lydia gave birth, she disappeared. Ashley and Hugh Miller altered the birth certificate information, turning Isabel into Ashley's biological child. When Mark began to suspect something, Hugh staged an accident to kill him. She was complicit. Gloria paused, looked at me, but I signaled for her to continue. When questioned about motive, Ashley said, I just wanted a better life. I was tired of being poor. I didn't mean to kill anyone. I only wanted to hold on to what I believed was my chance. Gloria's voice faded. The room sank into silence. I stared down at the page, feeling both strangled and hollow. I had thought I would feel relieved when I knew the truth, but I didn't. What I felt now was an exhaustion to the bone. A part of me had waited for this day so long that, when it came, I only wanted to sit quietly. Gloria set the paper down and took my hand. Helen, I know this is hard to accept, but at least now you have justice. Roberts has evidence, video from the hospital. Security cameras recorded Ashley meeting Hugh Miller, arguing, then transferring him money the very night Mark died. I nodded faintly, tears spilling without my noticing. How ironic, I said. They think justice lives only on paper, but for me, I only need to look at Isabel to know Mark still lives in her. Gloria squeezed my hand. Justice isn't just catching the guilty, Helen. It's also when you find yourself again. At noon, Roberts called. His voice was deep, tired, but lighter. Mrs. Helen, we have the formal confession. Both Ashley and Hugh Miller signed. We also found Lydia Torres's DNA on the mint green blanket, matching Isabel's. The case will be announced at a press conference tomorrow. I closed my eyes. Thank you, Detective. No need to thank me, he said. Without you, this would never have been reopened. You're the bravest mother I've ever met. After he hung up, I sat still for a long time. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, carrying the damp scent of earth and flowers. For the first time, I heard the rustle of leaves without feeling sad. Toward evening, Gloria came to get me. We went together to the police department. Ashley was held separately in an interrogation room. I stood behind the glass and watched her sitting there, back hunched, hair loose, eyes empty. She was no longer the woman I once knew, the one who stood beside my son at their wedding, with a perfect smile. Now she was only the shell of ambition and guilt. I looked at her for a long time. I didn't feel hatred, only a slow, dull pity. She looked up, and her eyes happened to meet mine through the thick glass. In that instant, I saw those eyes, tired, despairing, and I knew she had lost more than I had. She had lost her soul. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I only laid my hand on the glass, as if placing a period at the end. My son has forgiven you, I whispered, because he never knew how to hate. And I will learn to do the same, not for you, but for Isabel. When we left the station, it was already dark. Gloria drove while I sat silent, gazing out the window. Streetlights shimmered on the puddles like smears of stars. The city kept living, kept noisy. But inside me, everything seemed newly arranged. Tomorrow will be better, Gloria said, her voice husky. I know, but there's still one thing I have to do. What is it? I'm going to petition for custody of Isabel. No one else is more deserving. She smiled. I think Mark would be very proud. The next morning, we went to the social services office. Isabel played with a staff member, her face innocent, eyes bright. I filled in the final lines on the form. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from emotion. As I signed my name, I heard Mark's voice in my head, warm and far away. Mom, I know you'll protect her the way you protected me. I smiled gently. A few hours later, Roberts called with the news. My petition was granted temporarily. Isabel would live with me until the court completed the procedures. I turned to Gloria, tears running down my cheeks. So, the child is coming home. She laughed softly. No, Helen. She's been home all along. That afternoon, I brought Isabel back. She wrapped her arms around my neck at the door, her eyes shining. Grandma, I missed our home, she said. in that pure little voice. I laughed through tears. I missed you too. I led her to the sofa, where the mint green blanket lay waiting. You know, I said quietly, this blanket has held a lot of love. Your birth mother's, your dad Mark's, mine, and even Auntie Gloria's. It's a story you'll understand when you're older. She smiled, pulled the blanket around herself, then rested her head against me. In that moment, I knew the storms had truly passed. Late that night, after Isabel fell asleep, I stepped out onto the porch. The sky was crystal clear, the full moon bright and round. I sat in the old chair with a cup of hot tea and looked up. Mark, I whispered, do you see? It's done. They've been arrested. You can rest now. Isabel will grow up in truth, not in lies. And I'll live on for her. A breeze drifted across the porch, carrying a gentle mint scent. I smiled. Perhaps that was my son's way of answering. I went back inside, straightened the blanket over Isabel, and kissed her forehead. Her breathing was even and warm, like a lullaby of peace. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I slept well. No hauntings, no falling dreams, only a lightness. Justice had been done, and love remained. Time has flowed on, like a gentle river, after surviving the wildest rapids. 18 years have passed since the day justice was served. Sometimes I still hear the rain of Seattle tapping against the roof, but now that sound no longer carries sorrow. It's only a tender lullaby from the past. I am 87 years old. Each morning, I sit by the window and look at the garden Isabel has tended through all her growing years. The lavender stretches out in violet rows, perfuming the air. Spring sunlight filters through the Seattle clouds, warm and golden against the window frame, darkened by time. This house, once filled with tears, is now overflowing with laughter. Mark's photographs still hang on the wall. But when I look at them, there is no ache left, only calm, as if my son still lives somewhere in the breath of this home, in Isabel's eyes, in the quiet afternoons we share tea, books, and silence that needs no words. Today is my birthday. Isabel has been busy since morning, music floating from the kitchen, mingled with her bright laughter. Grandma, no peeking. You'll ruin my surprise, she calls out. I laugh. At 87, do you really think I can still be surprised? Of course. I used a new recipe for the strawberry cake. Let's hope it doesn't explode in the oven like last year. We both burst into laughter. That laughter ripples through the house, reaching the corners, once heavy with my sobs. Time is a kind of magic. It doesn't erase pain, but it teaches us how to live with it. The door opens. Gloria steps in, slow, careful, but her eyes still gleam with the same light. Her hair is all silver now, her face lined with years, but her voice remains warm as ever. Happy birthday, Helen. I rise to hug her. You came. I thought you'd forgotten. Forget? You? The woman who made the Seattle police reopen a case after 3 years? I wouldn't dare. We laugh again. Isabel brings out the cake, lighting the candles. The soft glow flickers on her 21-year-old face, so bright, so serene. For a moment, I see Mark in her smile. A quiet miracle only love could weave. After we blow out the candles and share the cake, Gloria takes a small silver-wrapped box from her bag. I've kept this for 18 years. Now it's time it came home. My hands tremble as I open it. Inside lies the mint green blanket. I freeze. It's just as it was. Faded, worn at the edges, the threads thinned by time, but carrying that same scent of tears, of memory, of love. When I touch it, it feels like touching my own heart, scarred but steady. Isabel watches me with gentle eyes. That blanket was the beginning of everything, wasn't it, Grandma? I nod. Yes, my dear. It all began with this, threads that seemed to make an ordinary thing, but instead wove the lives of 3 generations of women. She smiles softly. Then you have to open my gift, too. I raise a brow. What have you done now? Isabel opens a small wooden box. Inside is another blanket. New, the same mint color, but more delicate. Every stitch perfect, smelling faintly of fresh wool. I made it myself, she says, her voice trembling slightly. I know the old one carries a lot of memories, but I wanted to give you one that holds only love. No pain. I press my hand to my mouth to hold back tears. Oh, you foolish girl. You'll make your grandma cry. If you cry, I'll cry too. Then this house will drown in tears, I say, and we both laugh through them. I spread the 2 blankets, one old, one new, side by side on the sofa, the old one frayed, steeped in sorrow, the new one soft, luminous, full of hope. 2 generations, 2 eras, coexisting in the same light. And I realize life and death, loss and renewal, hatred and forgiveness are merely different threads in the same fabric called love. In the afternoon, golden light spills across the garden. Gloria and I sit on the porch, watching Isabel water the lavender. I still remember the day your hands shook as you handed me that blanket, Gloria says. Who would have thought, 18 years later, we'd be here, in peace? I nod. I used to think justice meant putting the guilty on trial. But true justice is when good people no longer have to be afraid. Gloria smiles. And when the heart finds its way home. I take her hand. Our old hands tremble, but they're warm. Thank you, Gloria. Without you, I'd never have had the faith to finish the journey. We all live on faith, Helen, she says. And on people like Isabel, those who make the world worth believing in. We fall silent. The wind hums through the trees. The lavender breathes its perfume into the fading light. Everything feels simple, beautiful. That night, Isabel spreads both blankets on the sofa, the old underneath, the new over top. Why like that? I ask. She smiles. So new love can protect old memories. Because without pain, Grandma, how would we ever know what love is? Her words stop me cold. I look at her for a long time. The girl born from Lydia's blood, loved by Mark as his own, and raised by me with everything I had left. Within her lives, the best of 2 lost souls, and proof that love can outlive guilt and time. I rest my hand on the blankets, whispering, Mark, Lydia, can you hear me? Isabel has grown, strong, kind, and whole. She carries the best parts of you both. I kept my promise. No darkness has touched her again. I lift my gaze to the window. The moon is full, bright, silvering the garden below. The lavender sways in the breeze like gentle spirits smiling. Late into the night, after Isabel has fallen asleep, I sit alone on the porch, finishing the last lines of a journal that's followed me for 20 years. On the final page, I write, Evil once hid inside a blanket. But love wove another one. And that's what saved us all. I close the notebook, set it beside the steaming cup of tea. The Seattle night is still. In the distance, rain murmurs softly with the wind, a lullaby of peace. I lean back in my chair, gazing at the house glowing warm with yellow light. Inside, Isabel sleeps soundly, wrapped in the new blanket, woven from love, hope, and forgiveness. I close my eyes and smile. If I don't wake in the morning, it's all right, because at last, I've kept my promise. Justice was finally served. But when the light shone upon the darkness, Helen neither smiled nor felt triumphant. She simply sat in silence before two blankets, one old, one new, one woven with tears, the other knitted with love. Her revenge was never about taking a life. It was about making the truth seen and letting her heart begin to heal. She avenged through kindness, and she triumphed through forgiveness. Some wounds never truly heal, yet some souls choose to turn those wounds into flowers, so that those who come after may live in peace. If it were you, standing before pain like Helen's, would you choose revenge or forgiveness? Leave a comment below, not to judge, but to share your truth. If it were me, I would, because sometimes, even a single honest word can become the beginning of our own healing.